My name is Scott McKnight. My wife and I, we help individuals navigate insurance and recovery after a house fire. These videos that we are sharing with you are only from our experience and from the experience of those of others who are inside of our free Facebook group. This is not legal or professional advice, so please know that. If you're looking for legal or professional advice, you're not going to find it here. We're simply sharing with you just our personal experiences. Also, if you find that this information is helpful, we would ask you to like and subscribe to these videos. It helps us to be able to get out the information to others who are experiencing similar situations, such as yourself. Mention a free Facebook group. We offer a free Facebook group that's truly is completely free, where we simply just share. We simply ask folks to share their story and describe their experiences with insurance. They're able to ask questions. We've pulled all of our frequently asked questions that's inside of our Up From the Ashes book directly from our Facebook group. So super helpful, super handy to have. And if you are looking for a little bit more information, a little bit more insight, obviously follow along with these free videos, join the free Facebook group. And we also have a book that we have written to walk you through the process of navigating insurance and recovery. And we also have an online course that you can go through that will give you a little bit more guided direction, a little bit more details. So this video is going to be specifically talking about trauma and grieving. We tie it into after a house fire, but honestly, trauma and grief is a universal application no matter what experience you've gone through, whether it's a house fire or another traumatic experience. We often hear people mention that they've been traumatized by a situation or that they were exposed to something traumatic like a house fire, but what exactly does that mean? And unfortunately, many people use the term frivolously without a really clear understanding. So in this video, we're going to unpack what is trauma, what does it look like, what do those symptoms look like, how does that manifest in your own body, what are some solutions for that? So trauma affects everybody differently. It is accompanied by different levels of emotion. Typically, a traumatic event is more prone to leave an individual with long-lasting emotional and psychological trauma if the individual was unprepared for the event, like house fire, right? You're not typically prepared for that. The event occurred suddenly and without warning. The individual felt powerless to prevent the event. The events were compounded, such as with child abuse, where the event occurred during childhood years. Okay, so does not mean that, hey, if you're not a child, things are not going to be traumatic. That's not true at all, but they are more likely to be traumatized as children because we've not developed some of those key healing mechanisms yet. Traumatic events are defined as events that are both powerful and upsetting and intrude into the daily life. Unfortunately, events like a house fire are going to be pretty traumatic and are going to be very invasive into your own daily life. They may involve a threat to your own psychological or physical well-being, your own life, the life of a loved one. They may have very little impact on one individual, but can lead to significant distress in another. So your trauma is not the same as my trauma and vice versa. It could also be related to the mental and physical health of the person, previous traumatic experiences, the presence or lack thereof, certain coping skills, and also a level of social and emotional support at the time of the potentially traumatic event. So your own structure, your own development, your own skill set, as far as your emotional skill set, your own coping skill set, can have a significant impact on that. So what are some examples of some of those events? Well, natural disasters such as fires, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, interpersonal violence, involvement in a serious event or accident such as a house fire, or acts of interpersonal violence or acts of other violence such as an armed robbery, war, or terrorism. Okay. There are many other kind of examples that we give in our book that would be helpful to kind of review and reflect on. But what are some of those signs and symptoms of trauma? Everybody's going to be different. And honestly, it impacts the entire person. It impacts your entire being. It impacts your thinking, your physical health. It impacts your spiritual health, your emotional health, a whole slew of things that it truly impacts. So it could lead to intrusive memories or thoughts of the event that may occur out of the blue, out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you just start thinking about the fire or how you felt with the fire, or thinking about events surrounding the fire. You have nightmares, truly having traumatic nightmares. Visual images of the event, just replaying the event over and over. Disorientation, confusion, significant mood swings. There's a lot of cognitive changes that can take place with that. Some behavioral things could be avoidance of certain activities, all right, or going places that trigger memories of the event. Social isolation, lack of interest in previously enjoyable activities. There might be some physical things like being easily startled, having a fast heart rate, being edgy, having insomnia where you're having trouble sleeping at night, sexual dysfunction, changes in sleeping or eating patterns, feeling just aches and pains throughout the body that don't really seem to make any sense. Spiritually, you could be praying more, praying less, reading scripture more, reading scripture less. Some different impacts that have. Psychologically, you could have overwhelming fear, an obsessive compulsive disorder, detachment from other people, depression, guilt, shame, being irritable, having anxiety, having panic attacks. Again, these are not necessarily diagnosable symptoms, and yes, they could be symptoms relating to a more complex issue, but you can have all of these symptoms, or some of these symptoms, or none of these symptoms from experiencing a traumatic event. Again, every person, every situation is going to be different. So what happens if I don't address this stuff? What happens if I start feeling irritable, I start having mood swings, I start feeling different? What's going to happen if I'm not addressing the untreated trauma? Well, unfortunately, many people go for years having some of these symptoms, they don't really know what to do. And so they just chalk it up to a fact of life. And it seems to go even like beyond help, like, I can't just deal with it, or I have to deal with it because it's just part of my new normal. Unfortunately, people often believe that they must deal with negative emotions by just kind of bottling them up and hoping that they disappear. And that's not really what happens. Our emotions are truly meant to tell us something. Some of the negative impacts of trauma can really lead to some negative coping skills like substance use, alcoholism, sexual problems, hostility, social withdrawal, self-destructive behavior, impulsive behaviors. The list goes on and on and on. And it's really, it can feel so overwhelming because you've just gone through this traumatic event. You're like, what in the world do I do? Is there hope? Is there help out there? Is this just something I just have to deal with? Talked about this in a few other videos, that wouldn't it be great if we just had a place to go, we had a group to go talk to, we had an anonymous person to reach out to, we had a counselor who understood, we had a support system in place that knew what this was like? Would be fantastic. Unfortunately, it doesn't really exist. That's why we created a free Facebook group for that reason, because we didn't have support afterwards. We looked online and it didn't exist. We looked at videos and it didn't help because nobody else seemed to be telling their story about what it looked like after a house fire. It didn't seem like anybody else had even been in our shoes before. But yet, when we asked people who we knew who had house fires, we're like, oh yeah, there's a huge need for this. If only somebody would have created it. So again, what we're sharing with you, what we're telling you, is not that there's an obliteration of hope. It's just the opposite of that. We mentioned in the beginning that we truly believe that God has allowed us to move forward in this direction, that God had opened up doors that truly, without a faith and a belief in Jesus Christ, that we would not have had anything. Our life would have been changed. Our life would have been turned in such a negative view. And we truly believe that there is hope, even through difficult and traumatic events. We believe that God created each one of us to be unique as individuals, to be unique as a community. And he created such situations in our life to be unique to us. Every situation is going to be unique. Every experience is going to be unique. Just for a second, I want you to do something just a little bit different. Okay? I want you to take a look at your hands. Specifically, I want you to take a look at your fingerprints. If you take a look at those, you're going to see loops and swirls. You're going to see maybe lines, maybe wrinkles that haven't always been there. Those are not marks of blemish. Those are marks of beauty. You have been created. You have been designed for something different, for something unique, for something beautiful. You may feel like right now that what you've gone through, nobody else has gone through. Nobody else has encountered what you've gone through. And you're correct. No one else has gone through exactly what you've gone through. They've not experienced it the same way. They've not felt it the same way. They've not had the same aches and pains and heartaches. But there are some others who are out there who have experienced similar situations. And they want you to know that you're loved, that there's hope, that healing is possible. And I want you to know that healing is truly possible, and you are not alone. What you may be experiencing right now is a completely normal response, despite the abnormal thing that's happened, a house fire. You don't have to internalize these beliefs. You don't have to internalize these ideas. You don't have to wear it as a badge of honor. You also don't have to realize that this is just baggage you have to carry with you for the rest of your life. I'm here to tell you that in time, it will be easier. It may not be easy right now. And there may not be a way for you to even see that it's going to be easier right now. But I want to give you hope. You can learn from others who have been in similar shoes. They've already experienced what you're experiencing. And can I just share with you for a second? Myself, my wife Lydia, the others in our Facebook group, we really want you to feel supported. We want you to know that you can have your questions answered. You can have truth. You can have hope. There really is light beyond what you're going through right now. So if you've appreciated what we've talked about, feel free. I want you to like this. I want you to subscribe. Take a look at the items in the description below. We'll catch you in the next video.